Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay and welcome to Ripley in Surrey. Now I've come today to do the Adidas Adizero Shoeoff. Now that's going to do the 4 shoes. I'm going to do 5k in each shoe and about my marathon pace, so I think it's about 6:45 a mile, and see how they all shape up. Now it's very warm tonight, so I'm going to have to, I've got the short shorts on and the my Zwift singlet in white, so maximum coolness. Unfortunately I've got some Nike socks on, I couldn't find the Adidas socks. Let's have a quick look at the shoes to remind ourselves. So here they all are. On the left I've got the Boston 9s, I've got the blue ones here, the Adizero Pros, they've got the Adios 5s, and I've got the SL20s. Now I'm going to do them in this order because this is essentially heaviest to lightest, although with these shoes there's really not much in it. So the Boston 9s, bizarrely the left one comes in at 299 and the right one at 291. So I'm going to put my stride, which basically is the difference between the two, to even these two one up, put that on the right shoe. So the Adizero Pros are only fractionally lighter than the Boston 9s. They come in also that the right one's slightly lighter. I think they average around about 285, shall we say. So I'd say on average about 10 grams lighter. So again, I'm going to put the stride on the right foot. Then we come into the Adios 5, which though bizarrely are the racing shoe as well as the Adios Pro. These actually come in at around about 275. And the lightest one by a whisker is actually the SL20. SL means super light, so that kind of makes sense. And they're about 268 in my size. So these are all UK 12.5s. Okay, so I've got the Boston 9s on here now. Here we go, and the stride on the right to even up the weight, as I was mentioning earlier. I'm going to do a little warm up to the start of the course and just show you where I'm going. It's mainly sort of country lanes with a bit of pavement on the main road for a very brief section, but it should be hopefully be fairly quiet. Although this car park here, which sort of serves a river, it's a very nice evening tonight, so it's rather busy. So I think I was lucky to actually find the space. But at least safety in numbers, because this you turn up here, the only car, you might be a bit worried for your shoe collection. Right, let's get a little warm up done, and I'll show you this course. Okay, we'll start and finish at the 7 Stars pub, which seems to be open again. First of all, we go straight into Polesden Lane, which is a nice little narrow country lane. We'll just run up here for a little bit for our warm-up. It's still quite warm actually, but there's a bit of a wind tonight, so we've got something a headwind to start, which is probably the best way. There's the sun. I've done 20 miles now in the Boston 9. Quite enjoying them, I must say. First run I thought they were a bit low to the ground, but they feel quite cushy on this one. Nice and lightweight. So I don't run too far uphill, so I need to run back, put the camera down. That'll do for that foot direction. I'll run back to the car now, drop off the camera, and we'll get this going. Okay, I'll see you after the run in the Boston 9. So run done in the Boston 9, I think I got that pace spot on. I was hoping for 6:45, so I think each mile was more or less spot on, so pleased with that. It's pretty humid, sultry evening, so I'm sweating quite a lot. I think my average heart rate there, I'll just check, was 133 with a max of 140. It felt sort of what you say comfortably hard. That was exactly my marathon pace, 2:56 in Seville. But it's the sort of pace that if you take that into your marathon as your fastest pace, you're going to get found out. But yeah, the Boston 9s felt nice and comfortable. It's my 3rd run in them now. That'll be about 23 miles I've done in them now. First, initially I thought they were a bit low to the ground, but the second run and tonight I thought were a bit more cushiony. So those were the heaviest, in inverted commas, shoes tonight. So now we're into the Adizero Pros. These are certainly the most expensive shoes, and in theory these should be the best shoes, shouldn't they? They're certainly most expensive, and these are sort of the most hyped shoe, although you might argue that they're almost impossible to get. Adios Pro one remains to be seen, but haven't got that one yet. I don't think anyone else has, apart from a few people who are selling it on eBay. I'm not sure how they get them, but anyway, there you go. Right, so let's get this next one done. I've got a little walk to the start, so the car park's about 2-minute walk to the start, so allows me to have a bit of a breather. I want to get this heart rate down. When it's so hot, you want to sort of make sure you're sort of fully rested between these to get the best indication. Obviously there's going to be a bit of heart rate drift, so some of this will definitely be on RPE, but I've got the stride on as well, and that was hovering around the 290-300 mark, so that's about what I expected. And see you later. So run done in the Adizero Pros, well, I managed to run that almost exactly the same time, and I ran almost exactly the same heart rate. So on the face of it, not much difference. I was a bit more tired on the second run than the first. Didn't feel like there was a huge benefit there. Sort of slightly softer in some ways and then slightly firmer in other ways. There's definitely more stack height. When you just walk around, it feels very soft in the Pros, but when you get going, it's a bit more firmer. I quite like them, but it's not really that step change in performance when you put the next percent on. So yeah, £160 compared to what, about 90 odd pound I paid for the Boston 9s with a discount. Don't think it's really worth almost double the price. But anyway, so now I've got on the Adizero Adios 5 here, which I can feel already. They just feel like noticeably more minimalist than the Pros. They just feel a bit narrow. I think I pulled in the laces tighter on these ones, and a bit more lower to the ground. In fact, these probably of all the shoes I've gotten tonight, these are the most lowest to the ground. And these are the shoes, or the Adios 1 version. I did my 253 marathon in Italy in 2016 as opposed to 256 earlier this year. But 4 years less on the clock, I could probably get away with running Adios. Anyway, let's get this one done and see if I can get this done before it gets dark. Right, see you later. Bye. Okay, run down in the Adios 5. Would you believe that was the same time, and I think it was just one beat higher on both on average and max. Definite difference there in the feel though, because the Adios 5 much more low to the ground, feels much more minimalist. Actually feels a lot lighter on foot than the actual weight difference shows. I think it's just the stack height's probably about maybe 2/3, and doesn't have the plate in it, of course, and that extra cushioned insole that Ed Budd pointed out. But my legs were starting to feel quite tired then, but I think in a way that the actual low to the ground lightness of them actually helped. And the first mine's probably the hardest in relative terms, because it's you feel slightly uphill and slightly into the wind. Once you get into rhythm in a run, you sort of know your pace, don't you? And even if you feel tired, you can lock into it. So certainly on heart rate alone, not much to choose there. I expect the heart rate to go up a bit in my 7th, 8th and 9th mile. Right, so we've got now the SL20s on, and here they are, the SL20s. Okay, so just about enough daylight to get the SL20s done, and legs are starting to feel rather tired now, so let's see if the extra super lightness of them, the SL, actually helps. They definitely, just putting them on now compared to the Adios 5, they feel a lot spongier just standing still here. So right, I'll walk up to the start and we'll get this going for about another 20-30 of running. Okay, see you later, bye. So run down in the SL20, I've just come up the way a bit to the river here to catch a bit more light just before it gets dark. So remarkably, those 5k-ish reps were all within 4 seconds, and the last 3 were all within 1 second. So I did that pacing on GPS, so there's a topic for another day, but who says you can't pace by GPS? Went on the lap pace, just looking for 6:45 lap pace all the way around, and hit that spot on. So that was good. So the SL20, noticeably softer than the Adios. I think my feet, maybe they're getting a bit warmer. It feels like almost felt a bit short in the shoe. But I didn't really feel the lightness on foot. It felt bizarrely that although the scales say that the Adios weigh about 8 grams more than the SL20 on foot, I think because of the slightly softer, higher stack height in the SL20, they actually feel heavier, which is kind of a weird sensation. Perhaps one, you need to be slightly careful on the weight. Maybe this is an example of the Alphafly, which is a very relatively heavy shoe, but obviously Nike believe it to be the fastest shoe. Again, a topic for another day. So what did I make of all those shoes? Well, having run 12 miles of them and on rather tired legs, I couldn't really put a winner on them, to be honest. I suppose all I could say is that the Adidas Pro didn't shine, considering it was almost double the price of the other 3 shoes. And the difference in weight between the lightest and the heaviest is, we're talking 30 grams, which isn't really, they're all, even for me in a UK 12.5, they're all under 300 grams, which is pretty light. All those shoes are actually heavier than the Alphafly. And they pretty much cost, all four together, pretty much cost the pair of the Alphaflies. So I think I need to go back indoors, have a look at the data, have a bit of a mull over. One thing perhaps I would say is that the Adidas Pro, maybe it would last the course longer because it just felt slightly softer on foot. Although the Boston 9 felt quite good, but it's It's also a tricky one when it's the first shoe on foot, because you're obviously fresher by then. On that fourth rep, I was quite glad to see the end of it, because that was a good evening's work. 12 miles at marathon pace, 6:45 each one. So yeah, I think we'll go back indoors, get showered, and we'll check out my spreadsheet, and we'll see you later. Okay, bye. Okay, so we're back indoors now. It's actually the next day, and I've had time to analyze all this data. So just a quick reminder of what we did. We did a circuit of 3.05 miles, so just short of 5k in each of the 4 different shoes, starting off with the Boston 9, going on to the Adizero Pro, move on to the Adios 5, and finishing off with the SL20. As you can see from the time too, I actually did quite a good job with the pacing, if I say so myself. So I got the first one at 20:33, which is 6:44 pace. And I was aiming for 6:45 pace, because in this line here, that's the exact time I did in my marathon in Seville in February, where I averaged 6:45 pace for a 2:56.53. So 2:33 for the Boston 9, and then the other 3 were literally all within a second, just a fraction faster. So I'd say that's a pretty good pacing job. Now, it was quite a warm evening this, so I had made sure I had quite a long rest between the sets. So I think I averaged 13 minutes rest between them. So although you can expect a bit of heart rate drift in any sort of run when you go over time, I wanted to minimize the actual sort of ongoing fatigue. So you can see that my average heart rate here crept up slightly, as did the maximum heart rate. I think that 145 at the end in the SL20 was mini, because I hit the last sort of half a mile. I was getting a bit tired, a bit higher. So the first thing I would say here, there's actually all these runs were pretty much the same, and in 4 different shoes. I'm not sure that I'm really seeing any difference at all, which is, I guess, is the acid test. Is the Adizero Pro any better than these other Adizero shoes costing considerably less? And on this evidence, I would probably say no. So if you look at the other data here, I also wore the Stride foot pods, and the watts, as you might expect on a fairly flat course, were similar. For some reason, I only got 2% air power in the Pro, and I got 8% and 7% on the other ones. Now, when I did the next percent run in Seville, I only got 1% air power. So I'm not entirely clear which one of these air percent power is correct, which is one of the problems I'm finding with the Stride, that this air percent power can vary depending on what shoes you've got and where you put them. So what I've done here is take away that air percent contribution and just have the net power. And as you can see, those are all fairly similar, as were the cadence, 183 or 184. The ground contact time and vertical oscillation measured by the Stride and the Garmin. Well, the Garmin ground contact time, almost amazingly, was 208 in every single run, and 8.4 or 8.5 in the vertical oscillation. And the first figures there from the Stride, also you can see almost identical. So again, rather sort of showing from an actual running form point of view, I was actually running all these runs very similarly. Ground contact time balance, that's all how well even you are. Again, that was all fairly consistent, just a very slight lean to the left, but nothing much to worry about there. So LSS is leg spring stiffness. Just reading out the definition from the Stride, it's saying it's a measure of how well a runner recycles the energy applied to the ground. So interestingly here, according to the literature, the higher it is, the better. Although strangely, it seems to go higher when I was actually getting more tired. So I'm not quite sure if that's just a reflection of the shoes, because the Adios 5 is kind of like the firmest shoe. The SL20, maybe a tie with the Boston 9 for the second softest, and probably the Pro is the softest. So I'm not quite sure what that means. I think I'll have to ask the Stride guys more about that, those metrics, but fairly similar. I've also broken down the first mile, second mile, and third mile, just to give a bit more indication of how these splits were. And as you can see, I got each mile split within a few seconds of each other. And I think it's quite interesting to look at the average heart rate for the second mile and the third mile. You can see largely that's sort of creeping up, as you might expect from heart rate drift. So I think certainly when I wore the next percent in this similar test, and when I inserted these, I'd have a noticeable decrease in heart rate, even though I was getting tired. Whereas this is following just a very expected heart rate drift pattern, and certainly in the Pro, there's no evidence at all that was actually making my life any easier in that shoe. Didn't make it any harder, but considering it's at least £60 more than the other 3, it's questionable what benefit, if at all, that's given me. The only thing I did notice, as I mentioned in the video, that it just felt sort of slightly softer. So how it would be after a 10-mile run. Obviously, it's a bit difficult to do a shoe off when you do consecutive 10-mile runs, say, to see how it compares. So I think I'll try and get out for a longer run in the Pro to see how it feels, but I'm going to be surprised if it feels any better than, say, the Endorphin Pro, and certainly no better than the Next Percent. So rather disappointment really in this test for the Pro. You wonder if it's just more of a shoe that's hyped up, and Adidas really realised that this Pro shoe isn't that great, and that's why that Adios one has come out to a very limited audience. So I think there may be an indication we need to wait for that Adios Pro one to see whether they've actually improved this. But certainly on the statistical evidence, the Pro is no better than all the other Adizero shoes. So interested to find if you've got any of these shoes, how you find them. I would say perhaps in summary that the Adios 5 is definitely the firmest shoe, and in a way feels the sort of the most minimalist of a racer, even though it's not actually the lightest shoe. The SL20 is actually slightly lighter, although it just feels more of a trainer with a slightly more stack height, a bit more spongy. I quite like the Boston 9, actually. I think I'll take that out for a longer run soon. I've done a couple of 10-mile city strides runs where I was sort of going fairly easy, so try and take that out for a bit of a harder pace run. But yeah, so I think between the Boston 9 and the Pro, considering one was almost said £70 cheaper I picked it up for, then maybe the Boston 9 was the more better bet on terms of value. So hope you found that interesting, and if you have any of these 4 shoes, then perhaps any one of them is no better than any other ones. So that's perhaps wasn't expecting to find, but a very interesting result in itself. Okay, so I hope you found this interesting, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Okay, bye.